Republicans are starting to squirm. These proposals right now are hurting regular people.
One of the areas that really seems to be getting hit are programs that help women and children. This would cause 13.5 million Americans to lose their health insurance. We're seeing them decimate the rule of law. Why isn't Congress stopping him?
I want people to know what's going on so that they can take a stand because it actually is making a difference.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Jessica Yellin Show, where every week we try to bring you news of the world in ways that empower, inform, and leave you calm. The calm part's kind of challenging these days, but
Ah,
I'm very happy to be joined in conversation today by Senator Amy Klobuchar, who is Minnesota's senior senator, a lawyer who knows a lot about the law, and a one time and maybe future presidential candidate. I don't know. Senator, thank you so much for being here today.
well, thank you, Jessica. And I love the title, News Not Noise. And I do think what the title to me means is not like you're minimizing in any way how bad things are. Shock and awe going on where, say, in my mind, the Trump administration announces things that they don't even mean they're going to do, or they might like to do it, but they know it's not going to happen, and then they distract us from the real issues that are affecting people in their everyday lives, like these Medicaid cuts, which you've got people on assisted living. Half of the people are on Medicaid that are on assisted living. So there's so many examples of this with education and the like, how it's going to affect people being able to afford college. All of this stuff, that's what we should be talking about, but they keep trying to come up with another plane or you name it, and then the news goes, "Oh, let's all talk about this," because it's fascinating, and that's why they do it. But
Exactly.
I love the news, not noise. But continue on.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm so glad you get it. Um, let's start with the real substance we should be talking about, which is that House Republicans have advanced this big, beautiful bill, is what they're calling it, that would extend tax cuts to the wealthiest and slash Medicaid and food assistance by very realistic, I want people to hear this, very reasonable, not exaggerated measures. This would cause 13.5 million Americans to lose their health insurance over time. Before I ask you to get into the substance, can you just help us? You're there in the Senate. Do you get the sense that this will pass the Senate, or are there enough Republicans who are for it that it'll ultimately pass?
I think because people have spoken out, I always explain we are fighting this in the courts. A number of these proposals that are unconstitutional, we're fighting it in Congress. All we need is for four Republicans, four, to stand up in the House or four to stand up in the Senate. And then they lose. Then they have to go back and negotiate with us. But the third way we're fighting it is with our constituents by our side. So my own view, there was a Washington Post headline today, the article by Aaron Blake that Republicans are starting to squirm. My view was when our constituents, including in red states, stand up so much in red districts, it's starting to happen. They're saying, wait a minute, wait, I didn't sign up for this. I voted for Republicans, or I voted for Donald Trump because I wanted to get housing costs down because I can't afford my rent, or I voted for him because grocery prices or something. And it's been getting worse. So they're saying, why are you doing all this distraction and shock and awe and not helping me with things in my everyday life? That's what's happening on Medicaid, Social Security. So Republicans are getting so much pushback because of some of the people that are including that are watching us right now and listening to us right now. Um, because people have spoken out, they're starting to respond, and they're like, the people, especially people up for election in 2 years, they're like, oh, this is bad, man. They're gonna notice this. I can't really hide that it's gonna cost them more or be prohibitive to keep their mom in the nursing home.
So, and already I've seen two Republican senators say that they don't think this is going to pass or they're going to stand up. So they need two more for it to stop. Let me
Yeah,
ask you about the substance. Um, Medicaid is not what this program is called inside many states. So many people don't even know they're using Medicaid. Where I live, it's Medi-Cal. I think in Minnesota, it's Medical Advantage.
yeah.
Colorado has something called, what is it? Health First Colorado. So, if those programs go away and people can't get insurance, practically speaking, where do they go? What happens?
Okay, so we're going to go backwards in time if they're not able to pay for anything. A lot of these seniors will have no place to live except what in the apartment of their daughter or in the house with the three grandkids, or are they going to move where there's only no extra room and they're living in the living room? So, I mean, that's part of it, nor will they be able to medically. And so there is not a lot of places for them to go. And the charitable organizations are overrun right now. You also have food assistance that they're trying to push over on the states. Sometimes at the cost, the proposals they have out there right now would be over $100 million in a bunch of states, and the states have balanced budget amendments, so they're not able to suddenly take on those costs. That
Mhm.
seniors, veterans, people with disabilities, kids are the vast majority of people on that. Then you also just have all of these just regular programs that help people. And I'm thinking about the fact that 1 out of 5 American kids are on SNAP in some way, and I don't think these Republicans want to say they're hurting the kids on the long-term care, as I mentioned. Big deal. So these proposals right now are hurting regular people. They're real. And then people say, well, why would they do that? It's so unpopular. The tax cuts, they want to extend the tax cuts for the wealthy they already have and add even more. And that's a real problem. It's something like $80,000 in tax cuts for millionaires, and much more for billionaires. Those are the kinds, and when you look at where a lot of the money is going, that's where it's going. So none of this to me makes any sense. And they're literally trying to, and it's also expensive because the tax cuts are so expensive. I could wave a magic wand now, say the corporate tax cut. It was in the 30s. We went down. I would have gone down to 25, 26, 27 at the time. They went all the way down to 21%. Okay. Every point you add, 1 point. So let's say you go at the middle ground, 25. Every point you add adds $150 billion, $150 billion a year. Okay. Like that is a lot. And so that's 150 billion in 10 years. So if you add that up and you increase it by a certain amount, you're easily up to $1 trillion in added revenue that could pay for some of these cuts, that could pay for other things. So,
So their estimates, I've heard Republicans say that their estimate is doing these tax cuts will cause 1.5 to 2 trillion in lost revenue, and that's why they need to add up all this other stuff to make up that budget shortfall. One of the areas, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but one of the areas that really seems to be getting hit are programs that help women and children. You mentioned SNAP. For anybody who doesn't know, that's the food assistance program, which they overnight increased the amount they're cutting to $300 billion.
yeah,
I want to just read some of the specifics and then ask you about it. Trump
sure.
has already slashed programs to reduce maternal mortality, cut research into ensuring the safety of baby formula, pulled funding for research to protect pregnant women from domestic violence, canceled $1 billion in funds for school lunches. You talk about how he's fired most of the Consumer Product Safety Commission, which checks things like toys.
Yeah.
Are women and children just not an influential constituency? Is that why?
Roadkill. Also, women tend to own small businesses, so these tariffs, and they're not invited to the Treasury Secretary's secret meeting at JP Morgan. They're not, they don't have the cell number of the president like Apple does. And so you add that, a lot of women, when you look at their careers in business, start with small businesses. Then you go to the things you mentioned on Snap. That's a lot of women and kids that are using that food nutrition. They live longer, so they tend to use the
Oh,
Medicaid. You brought up the consumer products. We just did a meeting on that with the 3 commissioners that were fired, Senator Blumenthal and myself. The things we've done there, unbelievable. We finally got safer pool drains after a kid in Minnesota, Abby Taylor, was killed. Took a year after 16 surgeries. She lost her intestines in a pool drain.
oh,
It took like $75 just to put the right kind of pool drains on there. We passed a law. Consumer Product Safety Commission is in charge of it. Lead in toys. Kids a few years back were literally maybe swallowing a charm. They didn't die from choking. They died because there was lead in the charm. Passed a law. Consumer Product Safety Commission does the rules and enforces it. So we've had a lot less. Since we passed that pool bill, not one kid has died in the swimming pool. There were 5 to 10 a year. It so if you don't have or the dressers falling down, if People like to make money. I understand that. That's fine. But if you don't have a counterweight to that, public safety and the safety of kids, that should be the number one goal of it. If you have no counterweight, that they're taking that away to suck up to the donors that give to Donald Trump, these kids and anyone that uses products are going to be in big trouble. You just look at any big product recall that the Consumer Product Safety Commission is involved in. The beads, we had a little kid at our meeting yesterday who had, these are colorful beads that look like they're toys. They swallow them, and they got rid of that. They have to do things to step in when there's stuff just flying off the internet that hurts kids. And so when I look at all these things, the nutrition cuts, the need for balanced meals in schools, it inordinately hurts moms and kids. There's no doubt about it.
And, what you've been talking about is that the Trump administration has slashed all these regulations and then bodies that actually do the safety checks on all these products and various, even
Right.
food. So we don't know how safe anything we're dealing with right now is.
No, and I mean, so air traffic controllers, here's my view, and this affects everyone, not just women and kids. When they attack government the way they are, instead of just coming in and saying, you know what, we have a mandate to make some cuts. We're going to look at this coming budget. That's what you do, right? This budget that'll come up for next year. And you look at it, you say, we're going to cut 2% here, we're going to cut 3, you make a deal, you work with Congress, and you get it reduced. Some people probably retire and leave and lose their jobs, whatever. That's not what they did. They came in and said, shock and awe, we're going to cut all the new employees that have been here less than 2 years, who, by the way, are more likely the least expensive employees. So this assault on government, what's happened? Good people are leaving. People are like, I don't trust this situation. I get fired, then I get hired back, then this happens, and this happens. I don't want to work here. So you're not going to have the scientists to figure out avian flu. You're not going to have the people approving the medical devices. And that is, a lot of businesses are also really concerned about this. One of the reasons capitalism in our economy is so strong compared to other countries that don't protect intellectual property, don't have copyright, is that we have a legal system. The rule of law protects people's rights, and we've talked a lot about that, of course, with detentions and mistakes they've made on deportations and the like. Okay, but there's another side of it. The rule of law and a system that works, well, it can be frustrating sometimes, but it creates the rules that allows people, entrepreneurs, to thrive because they come up with an idea. That idea is protected under our laws, so they can produce the products and make money off it. It's not stolen away. Then they can get complex technology approved, like medical devices and trials on cancer and the like going. If you don't have that system, which has always been a strength of capitalism, then you're in real trouble because then it's just the Wild West. You don't know when things are going to be approved, when they're safe, anything. And people stop investing in new innovation. And that's what's happening right now.
And we're seeing them decimate the rule of law, as you say, across categories in the economy, in safety, in detentions, and also when Trump was overseas in the Middle East, talking about a lot of stuff that it seems like a distraction, but it's also seems there's some real corruption there. $2 billion
Mm.
crypto investment from, is it Qatar or UAE, and this plane. The question I keep getting is, why isn't Congress stopping him? You are in the minority. You don't have
Mhm.
the power to do that. But Mike Johnson said it's not my lane, meaning it's not up to Congress to weigh in.
Yeah.
What
Yeah.
it, what could Congress be doing?
Okay, so we have pushed these guys. Remember, we're in the minority in the House and Senate. I believe that's going to change. I think we can even win back the Senate because of all this. People in rural areas just so pissed off, and they've been voting majority in a big way Republican. 10% of them say, "I've had it. I need a break on this. I don't like these tariffs. I don't want to have baby strollers be 25% more." That will make the difference. But for now, we are pushing for votes. We do in the Senate when we have the ability, when there's certain kinds of procedural things that no one wants to hear about right now, we've been pushing votes that make them have to take a vote on things. The other thing we do is we push Republicans to say, vote with us. Are you kidding me? Do you really want this person in as a nominee? They've gone along with Trump. They've rubber stamped. But on some things lately, like tariffs, they've actually made changes. 4 of them voted with us on tariffs. People are coming out. All of the Republicans now are looking at this Medicaid, and a few of them are starting to say,
Yeah.
including Josh Hawley, no, I'm not going to do it. So, I wish we could wave a magic wand and say, okay, we can change this. We can't right now until the election, but we can do is get them to vote with us and stand up to them. And the only way we can do that is by motivating their constituents, which is why, why we're having this podcast right now. I want people to know what's going on so that they can call their Republican member of Congress, email them, take a stand, because it actually is making a difference.
Great. I have two more questions. I know you're on a tight
Okay,
schedule,
yeah,
so we'll
I
keep it
have
quick.
to go to
One
our
is a
meeting.
lot of people in my audience are very troubled by seeing ICE working with local law enforcement to take Spanish speaking people off the streets and disappear them into the system. Is there any will in Congress with Republicans in charge to sort of rein this back or even have oversight of what's going on in these detention facilities?
So I think you've seen in the case of in one of the cases, and probably more, they've actually said that they made a mistake, that this person should have been deported to El Salvador. And there's judges that make rulings that have to be enforced. If the administration won't follow the rulings, because I believe in the rule of law, you have to have a safe border. There's more we can do there. I voted to do more there, but when you start talking about the rule of law, you have to follow it. And if the administration doesn't follow it, judges can actually appoint prosecutors themselves to go after the officials that are doing this, that aren't following the law. So that's kind of it might sound like really, but it's
Like a
true.
special counsel
Under
on a
the
local
law, is
level?
allowed to do that. And that's what Judge Bothberg, in that one case I
Yeah.
mentioned, um, he actually has said that that's an option that he will look at
Okay.
in order, and he cites the law because he has the ability. If the Justice Department isn't going to tell their client, as in the U.S. government, isn't going to tell them, hey, that was a mistake, you got to bring the guy back, he can actually appoint someone to hold them in contempt. The officials, not necessarily the Justice Department, but the officials that are involved in this, and hold them in contempt, which is civil or criminal damages for not following the law. So that is the ultimate. Now, in most cases, the administration has been following the law grudgingly, but they've been following it. When they order to rehire people, they do. So that's
Right.
one of the things. In my view, they pick out the instances where they don't want to follow the law to be able to make news about it and have us talk about it on your podcast,
And distract
because
us
they
from
are,
Medicaid. Yeah.
yes. And it doesn't mean it's horrible what they're doing, horrible by not following the law and hurting innocent people with the cuts, USAID, everything they've done. But they seem to pick and choose when they follow the law and not. And
Interesting.
most of the time, they're following the law.
That's interesting. Okay, last question, different, changing gears a little bit. After the presidential, I have heard so many Democratic strategists say that the real issue going forward is Democrats should not run women because the last election showed us that women can't win. This ignores a bunch of things, including there is no primary and a bunch of historical anomalies that were so unique to this election. What do you make of this women can't win
Yeah,
narrative?
I think that that's not true. I remember when I was first running for Senate, we'd had two women, several men each election. One man would win, one man would lose. Then we had two women that had lost. And I was actually asked in the 2000s, I'm asked, can a woman win repeatedly for the US Senate? And I said, what do you mean? There a Republican woman run in Texas. That was Kay Bailey Hutchinson. I didn't even know her, but I threw that out. Like, if a woman can win in Texas, a woman can win in Minnesota. I had to answer it all the time. It's really kind of unbelievable. Now you see, despite what happened in the presidential, which, as you point out, a lot of factors there, in the US Senate, when you look at which races did the Democrats exceed the number and win despite the ticket losing, three of four of the races were women candidates. Tammy Baldwin in Wisconsin, Alyssa Slotkin in Michigan, and Jackie Rosen in Nevada. The other fourth was a man. He broke the glass ceiling, Ruben Gallego in
Yeah.
Arizona. But the point is, in those four key swing states, it was the women candidates who did better and was able to exceed the Democratic numbers in the kind of presidential race situation. And I think that's worth looking at. And you've also had women win in other countries. from Mexico, right? The first woman president
Yeah.
there, Scheinbaum, to what you see with Angela Merkel in Germany for many, many, many years, no longer there now. Those are the kinds of things that I think make it seem like, okay, Great Britain, way back, how can we forget Margaret Thatcher?
Right.
Um, so there have been strong women that have led countries before. And I think that it's just wrong. And mostly I look at the mayors and some women emerging in these governors' races being such strong governors from Kansas to Michigan to New Mexico. I mean, it's just all over our country. You have strong women governors.
I often hear this, by the way, from male Democratic strategists, just to put that out there.
Yeah,
Love men,
yeah,
but yeah.
there's a lot of stuff going on this side, but it is there's a lot of women who the women overwhelmingly vote, and I think to just close our eyes to women and say, oh, because one presidential candidate or two have lost, a lot of men have lost for president too, as in 50% of them. All right, I gotta go. I've got to
FYI.
go. Okay,
Okay. Thank you very much. I
see you
appreciate your
later.
time.
Okay,
Okay. Have a good one.
bye.
Thank you, Senator.
Bye.